So you've been back out on the road, and since the COVID lockdowns, what is different about normal now in your world? I mean, I assume, but there's no reason to assume that, like, it seems like, at least in gigs at my level, which is much lower, that, you know, the concerns about testing and all that have just like evaporated, and no one's thinking about that. But there have been some changes in terms of clubs wanting to have, you know, guarantees are kind of out the window and that sort of thing. The last time you were on, you sort of posited that guarantees might go away at the top end of the industry too, because insurance companies found out they had to pay out when there's a pandemic, you know. So like, what's different about your world, if anything, these days?
Yeah. So the testing thing kind of ended for us also a year or so ago.
Okay.
I mean,
about the same time.
Right. So people are really doing it on a regular basis. A funny story. I started this show with Florence and Machine in rehearsals in London, and we rehearsed together for several weeks, 5 or 6 weeks. We tested every day before we had to come in. Once the band rehearsals were over, we loaded out. We moved up to the first show, which is an underplay, which means we're playing a small club, right?
Yep.
And it just sort of generates some buzz. Went in, loaded in, rehearsed there for a couple days. I woke up the day of the first show, took a test, and tested positive.
Oh.
And of course, they're like, well, you can't come in. First show one. And we had built in like some redundancies. And I think that's something we still do now.
Okay.
As it happened, also, 2 of the members of the band got it. And we had recorded stems of whatever they played. We put it on a left right.
Yep.
Stemmed it out, and we had taken those stems and cut them. I went to the venue long enough to like grab a hard drive. Went back to the hotel, cut the stems, send them to the playback guy, and for the first handful of shows, 4 or 5, it was various versions of the playback being a stem of somebody in the band.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't come to the venue. So we kept doing that for the whole tour. It was like, if there was ever anything to happen to a band member, you know, from getting sick to being let go or whatever.
Yep.
We had in the box a recording of everything they played that we could put onto. But it did wind up getting used at least one more time in my memory, where one of the members of the band left their passport in their wardrobe case and couldn't leave the country we were in. So we had I had the recording of what they played, and we did a combination of someone filling in for them, but then like the songs that person couldn't quite get around. It's like the day before.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's tough to sub. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So like whatever. Right. And also, by the way, we're playing to like 20,000 people, so it's not like, you know.
Yeah. The stakes are higher. Yeah.
Right. So it's got to be kind of right. They used the record. He played quite a bit of it, and then they used the recording for a handful of songs that he just really didn't have time to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, that's one thing that we do, and I will do from now on, is track stems of what everybody plays, just because you never know.
It's really smart. We have a guy who's been on the show a couple times. This guy, Mike Schulte, plays in a fairly sizable cover band out in the Midwest called the Pork Tornadoes. And I mean, it's a great name. It's a fantastic name. They'll play, 5 to 10,000 seat venues. Like they do flyaways and this sort of thing. And he said they're going into the studio to record exactly this, so that they've got sort of replacements for every member if last minute something doesn't happen. Yeah. Makes sense. I saw a Keith Urban show at South by Southwest, I don't know, half a dozen years ago or something. and the bass player, there was no bass player on stage. And I tweeted about it. I'm like, what's going on? And it turns out the guy that like was, having surgery for something, and a bunch of the fans knew, and they're like, oh yeah, he was their MD, and I guess still is. He's back with him, but they just were like, oh yeah, we record every show, so that that's what.
There you go. There's the bass. Here you go.
There's the bass. Yeah, we just play to that. Everything's to a click anyway, so it's fine. Yeah, and I guess I suppose the Florence tour is to a click. Otherwise, you couldn't get away with playing the stems live.
Almost all of it. There's a lot of time code that goes on, so you have to have a click. The time code is firing video, firing lighting, firing snapshots and audio. So there were, out of, I don't know, the 20 something songs we played, there were probably 6 that were free, that were not on any kind of click. The rest of it, varying levels of playback, from like full orchestral sort of things to, to very, just whatever, like little bits here and there.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff on the last record that Jack Antonoff produced. That there were like these little weird sounds, like sort of strange horn parts, just sort of coming in and out. And for example, and it was just not going to be like we're carrying a horn section. So for that, we just used the stems from the record. And a lot of the other thing that happened was we had a lot of different personnel changes, and the click requirements from different people really kind of changed. So we didn't have like one click; we had like 4.